welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, we have the finals. It is going to be a rematch. We're getting that rematch, Canada versus US 2. We got a lot to talk about regarding that. Almost nothing directly NHL related. Pretty much everything is going to be about the Four Nations for this one. NHL's on a break. Four Nations is going to reach its peak in a couple of days here, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about. But do you want to start with do we want to start with some of the stuff that's already happened? I assume we're going to do a bit of a preview for this upcoming finals. Where do you want to start with it?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is we'll just start from the beginning and kind of work our way up to now. We can uh, dive in and kind of go through a recap of uh, the doubleheader on Saturday, and then the header on Monday. We can dive into those games and kind of get ourselves set to do more of a preview of the finals and where we're at now in the tournament. As um, lots taking place over those games, a lot of injuries. Well, not a lot of injuries, but some big ones, and just some craziness that is kind of all leading up to this final game we will have.
Yeah, it's man that game is like what it's on Thursday and it is currently Tuesday. This is going to be one of the most hyped games I think I've ever been alive for, as far as hockey goes. Like, I, short of a game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals, I don't think that even that is comparable to how many eyes are going to be on this game. Obviously, a lot of the guys, they would much prefer to win a Stanley Cup over win a tournament like this, but these guys have been absolutely like giving their all for this tournament, and we already saw so many people are saying that the Canada US game that happened, the fourth game in this tournament, that was one of the best hockey games they've ever seen, and I completely agree. Like, so the fact that we're getting that rematch just a few days later is going to be insane. And now it's not in the preliminaries. It's going to be the championship game. It's going to have all the stakes on it. Everything's on the line. Like, if the NHL isn't running constant ads advertising this game, I don't know what the hell they're doing. Because
I feel bad for the poor souls that were watching the NBA All Star Skills Competition was taking place at the exact same time as the Canada US game on Saturday. So I feel really bad for those people that did not get to witness this incredible game. And again, we talked about it in the last episode how important and for the league and how huge this is that they're doing it at this time of the year, because again, there's really not much going on. On Saturday, the Canada US game was the most watched hockey game that was a non Stanley Cup final since 2019. So, whatever you wanted to call it, 5.5 years, 6 years. This was the biggest hockey game that was a non Stanley Cup final game in a long time. And we're getting a rematch of it now. It's no longer just a round robin game. It is like the final game. This game, I think they're going to put out good advertisement for it. But even if they don't, so many eyeballs are going to be on this game. Like, I've been interacting with a lot of people that aren't, they'll kind of pay attention to hockey, but they're not really big hockey fans. But they're all over this. They've bought in on this tournament. They're locked in. They're excited for this final game. Like, it's this tournament has done so much for the NHL, the game of hockey, and couldn't think of a better final that we're going to get to witness on Thursday. A little weird that it's a Thursday, but everyone's going to be tuning in for this one.
Yeah, like the first game, had an average of 4.4 million viewers, and it peaked at 5.2. Like, those are crazy numbers going up against an NBA All-Star weekend. Like, obviously the NBA All-Star weekend's fallen off in the past few years, and notoriously was not very good this year, but you know, going up against any of the other major sports always really hurts the numbers. So to see hockey be able to break through and kind of basically win that duel almost is absolutely massive just for the game, really. I'm
Yeah,
trying
just to
to
put into perspective here, how different they are, because people were saying like, oh, obviously people aren't on that train now. Everybody has hopped off that train. But going in, people were kind of being like, oh, it's just kind of an enhanced version of the All-Star game, yada yada yada. The I don't know if you can call him the top player in the NBA now, but still one of the all-time greats, LeBron James. He didn't play in the NBA All-Star game on Sunday because he had ankle discomfort. And on Saturday in, Four Nations tournament, it's not not actual NHL games, but kind of a little in-season tournament. We had guys throwing haymakers at each other off the opening faceoff. We had guys slamming each other in the boards. Like the effort level is at an all-time high from these players. It's so clear how badly they all want to win and how much this means to them to win. We are we are so set up for, I think, just an incredible game on Thursday where, I think the effort level and the intensity and everything from Saturday is going to be brought up a couple levels. Like, it is going to be um it's just going to be such an incredible event, for those who are fortunate enough to go and, watch this game live. um you're just in for an absolute treat, like, really are.
yeah, it's going to be absolutely incredible. And it is funny that you mentioned that LeBron James stayed out of the All-Star game in the NBA for ankle discomfort, because as much as the vast majority of these players are going absolutely crazy out there for the Four Nations, Austin Matthews did stay out of the game versus Sweden once they had already clinched their ticket to the finals with upper body discomfort. So, so there is actually a pretty direct comparison. But obviously, Austin Matthews did play the two games beforehand, and he was skating like fucking crazy out there. Everybody was.
One, and
Like,
there's a
he was
chance
clearly
this
trying to
this is
stay healthy
also, and they
for
they
the
say
final.
upper body discomfort, but as soon as, with the thing is because it's Austin Matthews, we don't fully know, right? Because he's been dealing with this on again, off again injury all season long, that we never found out what it was. Right? This
Yeah.
was kind of the big one where we were like, we have no idea what he's dealing with. So is it related to this injury? We don't know. He only came back not too long before this tournament from said injury that again has been on again, off again. So that one I'm unsure. Like, it could be more serious. It could be, I mean, Charlie McAvoy, we thought was, he was just feeling a little bit under the weather, so he wasn't going to play
I didn't even think he was
Monday.
sick.
But
Yeah.
they were saying he was gonna be in the lineup Thursday, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, it's much more severe than we thought. We know he's already ruled out. He was ruled out as of, Monday night. So it's tough to say because again, they want to try and keep everything so under wraps and not really let too much come out about these injuries.
Yeah.
We know a little bit about some of them, but
I don't think it was Matthews doesn't feel like play. I think he's not exactly injury prone, but he's had, especially this season, quite a few injuries. These are hard hitting games, and they want once they had clinched to get to the finals, they obviously want him to play in the finals, so they just held him out for the game and said, you know
mhm.
what, we'll just face Sweden without him, and you know what, that's fine.
And I'm
Honestly,
sure if it was a, US
elimination
had to
game,
win or
yeah,
something to get in, he'd be playing. But it's the
he
fact
would
they
have been
already
playing,
had the
100.
bye.
percent
So it's like, and yeah, it's a good way to, because obviously we know Chris Kreider's probably not playing in the finals, despite, you know,
They're scoring
But,
their only goal.
yeah, a little bit of impressive showing from him. So it was like it's a way to get Chris Kreider in the lineup. You don't need Matthews playing, and he still is with that nagging injury. So made sense that he was the one to sit out. So
Yeah. I'm trying to find if so I'm seeing some of those viewership numbers, but I can't tell if there's I'm not gonna lie, I don't know a ton about ratings, about viewership. I don't know if that's like overall, if that was just the US numbers, if that was Canada numbers. I'm trying to find that, but not not having any luck finding any of that information. So I'm gonna assume that was the overall number.
For what?
The 4.4 million viewers that watched Canada US the first time
So the 4.4, that was 4.4 million viewers on ABC.
on
ABC,
ABC.
ESPN.
So would that just be in the US?
Um, I don't fully know. It's so tough nowadays with ratings, all right, because um, I think that I don't think that's just in the US. I think that is. Oh, that's tough topic. Because I was watching on cable TV because I'm like 1,000 years old, right?
Oh
So,
god, couldn't be me.
but again, I don't know, like, because it was classified as the ESPN feed, but I was watching it through Sportsnet on a Sportsnet channel.
Right.
And, everyone out there, if you wanted to stream it, the only way to do it was, going through Sportsnet, going on the Sportsnet website, on the Sportsnet app, doing it. And you're getting the ESPN feed, but I don't know how that exactly translates.
Right.
So it's so tough to tell nowadays. Like back in the day, it was just, oh, if you want to watch it, you had to watch on cable TV, and you can easily view that. But with all the
That there's
different
so
ways
many
people
ways to
can
watch
watch
it.
now, it's like, yeah, who knows, right?
Yeah,
Um,
cuz like you can watch it on cable up here in Canada or you can watch it on the app. In the States, it's even more of a mess. There's four different ways you can watch, but like they're all so specific and like some of them are region locked, like absolute
mhm,
nightmare. So, yeah, when they count these numbers by on ABC, it's like I don't even know what the hell that means, man.
yeah,
Is that gonna be 20% of the number? Is that 90% of it? Is that all of it?
yeah, exactly, right.
Trying to decipher the
Um,
Nielsen data.
but
All I know is a lot of
enough,
people watched.
yeah, exactly, right. But enough about the viewings whatnot. Let's actually kind of dive into these games. We kind of got four games to probably not dive super in depth with, but kind of go through and talk about a bit, to kind of set the stage for where we're at now heading into the final game. Let's get started off on the Saturday. We had the first game of the day take place in Montreal. Finland and Sweden. Finland winning that game 4-3 in overtime. Um, Give me your thoughts on this game. Kevin Lankinen starting this game too, by the way, not UC Saros, and Linus Ullmark coming in halfway through the game, um, for Philip Gustafsson was not pulled. They made that very clear. He was. I don't know if he was sick as well or if he was dealing with an injury, but they said it was not performance related for him getting pulled. So Linus Ullmark getting in some games here in the tournament.
Yeah, and yeah, it was real good to see him get some reps in there, and this was a really fun and close game. Absolutely love to see Finland get that win. You know, they really were that fourth team in this entire tournament. You know, everyone was looking at them like this is. I could see US winning. I could see Canada winning. Outside chance for Sweden, but I could see it. Very few people predicted Finland would win. Uh, and they had a great showing, honestly. Their tournament is now over, but they had an overtime win and two regulation losses. Um, the regulation losses being like pretty close games, all things considered. I know versus the US, it was 6-1, but going into the final period, it was 2-1 for the US. So it
Two
was,
to one, a little bit of penalty troubles for Finland, kind of, yeah, and then the game just got away from them at that point. But you
yeah.
know, they were in it up until the third period. Like,
And yeah. And, you know, obviously we now know at this point that, you know, they lost to Canada later on, which we'll talk about that happened after the Finland Sweden game. But They had great showings in all 3 games. When your number 1 defenseman is, like, Yanni Hakanpää, Esa Lindell, something like that,
Yeah.
like, and to put on performances and be as competitive as they were with the insane talent these other teams have, uh, they absolutely balled out. Like, they punched way above their weight class and they connected. Like, Mikael Granlund is one of the best players in this tournament.
Well, we both we can say it with Finland and Sweden talking about them at least. I mean, we got our predictions wrong for their MVP. Like their MVP of the tournament was Mikael Granlund, and
Yeah.
honestly, in my opinion, wasn't even close.
I don't know who I would have picked to be
Yeah, you know,
the
I thought
second.
because you had
Yeah.
Barkov, I had Rantanen. My thought going in was if it's not going to be um you know, either one of those two, because like if I wasn't picking Rantanen, I would have picked Barkov, and I'm assuming if you didn't pick Barkov, you probably would have picked Rantanen. I think we're both pretty confident we could say if we couldn't pick either one of those two, probably would have went with a goalie. Probably would have hoped that Saros stole a game for him and balled out, or Lankinen comes in and takes over something like, you know, Mikael Granlund. I think he started the tournament on the fourth line,
Yeah, I
and
think
he
I
worked
think
his
I
way up
picked.
into the top six, and you
Yeah,
know
you just kicked ass out there, man.
got
Like,
the game-winning goal on a great shot to beat Sweden, and then, he had those 2 late goals against Canada to kinda put a scare in the Canadians as Finland was looking to make a comeback, so
yeah, it's so funny because he didn't look like himself out there either. In the NHL, he's a playmaking machine. In this, he was all business. He was bearing it himself constantly. Like, who uh, near the end, I think it was the last goal that Finland scored against Canada when they were trying to come back and it brought them within 1.
yeah.
Like, it looked like the goalie was down and out. Patrick freaking Laine in his circle. Puck comes to him. He's ripping this, right? He's burying this shit. Nope, he passes to the slot. One of the most shoot first guys I've ever seen. Passes to Mikael Granlund, who's like 1 season removed from like what was it, like a 60 assist, 15 goal season, and like a pure playmaker, and then he snipes it. Like,
Yeah.
it was really funny to watch, and Granlund was like, all his shots were so tucked into the corners of the net too. Like, he was absolutely burying the puck, and I think I did pick Barkov for the
I
MVP.
think so, yeah.
I think when we predicted the MVP, the best goalie of the tournament, I do think I picked UC Saros. Um, but yeah, I definitely wasn't even really having Granlund on my radar as far as MVP went, but yeah, handily their MVP for this tournament.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I thought Finland played really good in their game with Sweden. Back and forth game we got, you know, it was a shorter overtime, not as long as the overtime we got between, Canada and Sweden, and yeah, it was a great shot. It was a you know, it was a hard fought win by Finland. You know, again, it was one of those games where it was like if there was a game they were going to win this tournament, it would have to kind of be this one against Sweden, and you know, Finland already kind of having their backs up against the wall with US coming in with a win. Canada had a win. Sweden got that little extra points from the overtime loss. Like Finland was their backs were against the wall and they needed to win this one to stay in it. And they went out there, they found a way. Lankinen, I thought played, you know, very solid. Um, they just really showed that, you know, even still in a best on best tournament when the consensus kind of going in was Finland's losing all 4 or all 3 of their games. Uh, they proved people wrong. They went out there and stole one, and so uh, yeah, I just thought it was a great game by Finland, and shows that you know, even with a weak blue line, they could still find a way to get it done. And obviously, you know, having Heiskin would have helped more in this tournament, but I don't think they can be upset with how this tournament ended for them, considering where they were at going in. I think they should be very proud of how they played throughout this tournament.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And like, honestly, like you say, like weak blue line, and like obviously we're talking about the general skill level that they've shown in the past. S. Lindell's great, but I'd take, you know, the third best defenseman on Team Canada over him, right? On
Mhm.
my team. But they didn't play like those guys. Like there was a couple blown assignments here or there, mostly on guys like McDavid and stuff. But like overall, they played really surprisingly well defensively, especially
Yeah.
considering who they were bringing and stuff. And
Yeah.
um, we can also talk about Team Sweden here for a bit because uh, Team Sweden, did they underperform compared to people's expectations? Like,
I don't think so because they're the only team that obviously, unfortunately, their hope and goal was obviously to get into this championship game, but you're looking at it at the end of it, you tied with Canada. The only reason you're not in there is because Canada won that overtime game. If you won that game in overtime, if Bennington didn't make one of those incredible saves, you're in the final game. You were the only team to get a point in all three of your games,
never
and
lost in regulation.
you, yeah, and you beat the Americans in your final game. And obviously, people be like, "Oh, well, it was a meaningless game." The Americans are still trying to win. They weren't going out there being like, "Ah, who cares if we lose?" They were trying to win,
Yeah,
and Sweden found a way to win. So again, like it comes down to if you bury one of those in overtime and beat Canada, You're you're playing on Thursday, right? It's literally a game of inches, and that's what it came down to for Sweden. So
yeah.
I
The
don't think they underperformed. Like they were right in there, which you know they weren't the favorite going into the tournament. But if at the start of the tournament, if you told me, hey, I'm from the future, Sweden won the tournament, I'd be like, okay, I'm a little bit surprised, but I'm not like how like shocked by it.
yeah,
They were definitely right in it. So I think they
yeah.
should also be happy with where they're
I
at. It's
I do think a lot of people kind of have the thought of like Sweden got bodied in the tournament. They didn't perform as well as they actually did, mostly because their final game, even though they won it in regulation, they still weren't able to get into the finals. Um, which obviously wouldn't have been the case if Canada didn't beat Finland in regulation as well earlier that day. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, but yeah,
They
because
should have swapped those games. I know that they're like, oh, the schedule was set in stone, and they wanted the Americans to play in Boston on the evening game. But once you knew that the situation, the circumstance of it, you should have swapped them. Made it a little more interesting.
I guess, but that's assuming like they didn't know that Sweden would win the game in regulation. Like if the
No,
US
no,
if the
but it's
US
the
won the
fact
game,
that
then there would be a lot less stakes in the Canada Finland game.
but all the stakes were in the Canada Finland game, regardless, pretty much. Like even if Sweden went out and lost, um to the Americans. Then it came down to Canada Finland. It was straight up whoever wins basically gets in.
Did they decide this scheduling later on, or like did we know it was Canada Finland then Sweden US like from the start?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, we knew it was from the start of the tournament. Yeah.
oh, okay, so I guess that would be
So I'm
the
like,
main
I
reason
don't
why.
know
But
if they could have changed it, but I was like, you could have because obviously hindsight now we knew if Sweden won makes the Canada Finland game that much more exciting. But even if Sweden lost, the Canada Finland game would still be exciting because that again was kind of the biggest determining game really. Like um
yeah, and
the thing with Sweden, though, right? And we talked about it. It was kind of the biggest thing when we talked about them. Um, you're looking at them now, and you're I think your biggest, going to because the Olympics are next year, right in 2026. Your goaltenders, you're fine. Obviously, you were probably hoping Jacob Markstrom would be there to be your starter. Unfortunately, didn't make it to the tournament. Samuel Ersson coming in as the third stringer played great. Wasn't a great tournament from Gustafsson or Allmark, but you're confident in your goaltenders going into the Olympics. Your blue line,
yeah,
unreal, like stacked. It looked every defenseman who was in the tournament looked great,
yeah.
but it comes back to that 1 and 2 center. Mika Zibanejad, yeah, he had that goal, but I thought he looked really bad in this tournament. Elias Pettersson,
He was playing.
non-existent in this tournament.
Yeah, you say 1 and 2 center. Do you even know where Pedersen was playing in the lineup by the end of it? He was
Probably
the
fourth.
third. Even worse than fourth line center. He was the third line right wing. They don't even have him playing center anymore. Like
Yeah, like it's just
they couldn't afford to. He played less
he
than
had
10 minutes in the final game. That
and
that's
didn't
huge.
register a single stat. No hits, no shots,
Did
shot blocks, goals, assist points, like nothing.
plus
He was
minus?
just out there getting cardio. His most noticeable moment in that entire game, Sweden's only win, was he took a face off against JT Miller. And he lost that face off too, by the way. That was his most noticeable moment, was like, oh shit, him and
Yeah,
JT Miller. And JT Miller obviously really geared down for that face off. You could tell he really wanted to win that one, but
yeah,
like, you know, that's a big thing. You look at even Finland, you look at their 1 and 2 centers were great. The Americans 1 and 2 centers, obviously Austin Matthews, not the greatest tournament, but we know he's dealing with this injury, and we still know what he's capable of. Like,
yeah.
and then Canada's, I mean, McDavid and McKinnon are playing out of their minds right now. But
In that
Sweden, you're
last game, they against Finland, they scored. McDavid scored what 4 minutes in. Then McKinnon scores 6 7 minutes in. Like the 1-2 punch
yeah, like
right
right
there
after,
was
yeah.
on display.
So for Sweden, like your biggest concern really is, and the biggest difference, if you have a legit 1 and 2 center in this tournament, you're probably playing on Thursday. You probably
Yeah,
beat Finland. You probably don't even go to overtime. You probably beat Canada in overtime, maybe even in regulation, the way they were storming back in the third. That was their biggest weakness going into the tournament, and it proved to be their
and
biggest weakness in the tournament.
luckily for them, I do think they will have that 1-2 punch in the future in these tournaments. I think the pieces are already there. They're just not ready. By the end of the tournament, Leo Carlson was already playing on that first line, and I fully
Who's
expect
the other
him.
one though? The other center.
I think Elias Pettersson is going to put it together at some point. I think this tournament could not have come at a worse time for him. Maybe a few weeks earlier before the Miller trade, but I I think I think this is his darkest point, and I think it's gonna get better. I don't know how much better. I don't know if he's gonna end up being, you know, the top 10, potentially top 5 NHL player that a lot of people really thought he could and hoped he would be. But I do think he's still good, a very elite player, and he's gonna get to the point where he can play on the second line. Um, for my money, Leo Carlson, when he hits his prime, is going to be a top 10 player in the NHL. He is so damn good at such a young age already. And even in this tournament, he proved that he's better than, guys like Pedersen, guys like Joel Eriksson Ek. He forced his way onto that top line, and he already looks so good at such a young age. Like
Yeah.
I'm so excited for this guy's future.
Yeah, the future is definitely bright, and it was good to see him get in for that final game. I thought he made the most of the opportunities that he was given in this tournament. So, yeah, I think he's a big part. At least Pedersen, I'm still up in the air. If he can turn it around, I think like he definitely can. It's just, is he going to? Um,
Yeah.
it remains to be seen. But with Sweden, who would you say ended up being their MVP um, for this tournament at the end here? I picked. Who did I end up picking? I had William Nylander, and he was definitely not.
Probably not their MVP, but he was incredibly noticeable for them out there when he
Yeah,
was playing.
yeah,
Um, and I picked Hedman, and I don't think it was Hedman either necessarily. They didn't really have anyone who really, really stood out to me. Um, Samuel Ersson in that final game alone deserves a mention. He only played the one
yeah.
game, so probably not him for the whole tournament. But uh, we can talk about him, his first star snub in a bit here, but Jesper Bratt had a really good tournament. Eric Carlson honestly had a really good tournament as well.
That's who I honestly think it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I
I
don't
thought
hate
he
that
kind
pick
of
at all.
came in and was like you know, it's kind of weird when you're talking about Sweden. It's not like Eric Carlson's not like one of their big defense anymore. It was kind of going in was like Victor Hedman, Rasmus Dahlin, and then Eric Carlson. I thought his defensive game was fine. Like I don't think he hurt Sweden
He was a
with his
+2
defensive play,
in the tournament.
and scoring a sweet goal, that insane pass yesterday to um who tipped that in? Who tipped the one in last night? Is incredible deflection.
Uh,
Gustav Nyquist.
Kempe Nyquist, yes, yes.
Nyquist. That was an incredible pass by Carlson. I just thought he was again. There were so many noticeable players on Sweden, and it's kind of that way when there's not like a McDavid, a Crosby, an Eichel or something, like someone that really stands out.
They had to
Um,
win by committee a little bit.
but it was hard not to notice Eric Carlson when he was out there, and
Yeah.
again on such a crowded blue line of so many elite players. He was kind of the one that stuck out the most, and mostly due to his offensive play. But that's
Defense did not hurt him at all, and people would often worry about that kind of thing when he's out there. But he put up 3 points in 3 games, and he was a +2. I'd also throw Lucas Raymond and Eriksson Ek in there. I think they both
they
had
both
really good
had good
tournaments.
tournaments. Yeah,
Eriksson Ek 2 points in 3 games, one of them a goal, a +4. He did really well defensively, as we know he does. Raymond 3 points in 3 games, all assists, +2. Yeah, kind of pick any one of those guys. Yeah, for my
I
money, probably Eric Carlson.
I would
But
give it to Carlson, but if I had to give an honorable mention, I'd go with Jesper Bratt, as I think he just kind of excelled in all three zones when he was out there. Really, like
yeah,
you don't really notice it as much with New Jersey because with the lines he's on, he's not expected to kind of be the guy. But in this tournament, I thought he really kind of showed that like he can be a line driver and he can kind of take charge and kind of be the focal point of creating offense for his team. And that was quite a surprise to me. Is again, you see flashes of it New Jersey, but
yeah,
you don't really see it for a prolonged period where he's just like, I'm the guy, I'm taking charge. And I thought he had a really, really good tournament.
yeah. He's a guy that I definitely knew was good, right? Like you asked me Jesper Bratt, like, yeah, he's a really solid top 6 player, but like that's
Wait a
one
minute,
of
our top
those,
50.
yeah, one of those moments where it just really reminded me, like, damn, this guy's fucking good. Like
Yeah.
like he's solidly an elite player, not a oh yeah, he's a top 6 guy. He can fit into the top 2 line. No, he's an elite player that can help drive a second or even a first line. So
Yeah.
it's I fuck man, it's been so long since we've had some of these tournaments. Like I just forget that you get to have those moments where you're like, damn dude, this guy's freaking sick. I wish I got to see more of him. Another guy that I had
Yeah.
a lot of moments like that, Matt Boldy. Like obviously I know Matt Boldy's good and he's also like he's 23 years old, but like for a stacked US team, I noticed him out there like a lot. Like
Yeah.
he was very noticeable out there. So
Yeah. You mentioned the Samuel Ersson snub for first star, but before we jump into that game, let's talk about the big one, the one that the entire hockey world is watching, the one we talked about at the beginning of this episode. Saturday night in Montreal, Canada and the US. What a
that's
what a
one of
moment.
that's one of the
What
most
a what
fun
a
hockey games I've ever watched. That was
Yeah.
so fun. That was
From start to
amazing, dude.
finish, it was spectacular. It really was. To start the game off with, three fights there in the first 9 seconds of the game. Um, you know, you kind of thought going in, like because it was NHL rules, which is a big thing we've talked about a lot with this tournament, that there could be a fight. Um, but like to get three right off the bat, I
3
was
fights
not
in 9
expecting
seconds.
I
Amazing.
was not expecting that. Recap of the fights starting off, it
And
was Matthew Kachuk fought Brandon Hagel. But immediately afterwards, Brady Kachuk fought Sam Bennett. And then not long after that, scrum in front of the net, and JT Miller forced his way to fight Colton Parayko.
As far as the actual fights go, like they obviously all three incredibly spirited. Um, the first fight, I'd say punches hit, thrown, and landed about equal.
It's a wash.
Hagel got the takedown, so you can give a slight nod there, but at most it's like a 60-40 for Canada there.
To me, that one was a 50-50.
It pretty much was with the punches. It's just like when the one guy gets the takedown on the other, it makes the crowd cheer. So it felt like a Canada win because because the crowd just lost their mind as they would have no matter what. Brady Tkachuk pretty handily beat Sam Bennett, which Sam Bennett still got a lot of good hits in. Brady Tkachuk is just a tank with legs.
Yeah.
So it's pretty hard to beat him in a fight. He's a nasty customer, but he held his own as a decent bit. But I think Brady Tkachuk did win that. And then it was JT Miller and who is it? Big defenseman.
Colton Parayko.
I was gonna say Tyler Myers, and I knew it wasn't right. Colton Parayko won that one pretty handily. I think that's the biggest win of the three fights. It size
He had
difference,
JT
man.
Miller so rattled. JT Miller punched his own helmet off to give Parayko a free shot. Like
there was no chance, man. He wanted to fight, and I love that for JT Miller. But yeah, he picked a huge freaking dude. Like he just grabbed him and held him at arm's length, and there's nothing Miller can do now. He's way over there. He can't punch him. And then he just rained them down on him like a freaking mortar strike. Like, just honestly, like Parayko didn't even look like he wanted to fight that much, but he was like, I mean, it'll pump up the team, and I can clearly beat the shit out of this little man. So
exactly,
so he just kind of did it, and that also takes three really good players off the ice for the U.S. So you love to see the Canada take the fights in that regard as well, because just a game before that, both Kachucks had 2 goals, so that you take 4 goals off the ice for 5 minutes right there, and then JT Miller as well. That's just one of the most electric starts to a game I've like ever seen. Not only was it such a fun start to a game, but like remember, I think it was last season when what was it, New Jersey and the Rangers, where it was 5 fights to start a game. That was absolutely
just a line brawl.
That was absolutely crazy, but like at least people did kind of expect it. They probably didn't expect 5 fights. That's why it was such a huge thing, but I would have put money on at least 1 or 2 fights right off the face-off. I genuinely didn't think we were getting any fights. I thought it might cross people's mind. Maybe we'd see some tough guy go up and threaten a fight. I didn't think we were getting any in this tournament. Not because of the effort level, but because when it was run by the IOC or the IIHF, you just did not see fights in international play. But this is NHL rules, bitch. We're going to fight, and it was freaking awesome. Like that, I do wonder if the viewership peaked sometime in the first period after that, or if it was later on.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on that. But yeah, like to get those 3 fights.
I was calling my friends saying, "Turn it on." I was like I had like 4 group chats blowing up all throughout this entire game. Like if you told me 15 million people in Canada watched it out of our population of like whatever it is, 38 million, I would have believed you, man. Like if literally half the country was watching, I would have been like, yeah, it was a good game. Like
like it was just incredible with the Montreal crowd that was just fired up for this game. Obviously, getting those fights really just
crowd.
Just amped it up that much more. I thought was just an incredible way to start this and show that, like, again, this isn't just a for fun tournament to these players. This isn't like an all-star thing. Like this means a lot to them, and to be going out there, swinging. There was a bunch of big hits. Like it was chippy, it was
Huge
scrappy.
Hits.
It was
Kachuk almost was incredible. Put Doughty through the boards at one point.
It felt like a Stanley Cup playoff game between just like 2 heated rivals. Game. Like it was an incredible. It was just such an incredible atmosphere. It was something that was so amazing to witness. We've gone 8 years in however many months without getting best on best, and to get this was incredible, and it really just showed like how much we've been missing this, how good this is for the game of hockey. Um, the US goes on to win this game 3-1.
One being
Really
an empty.
2-1
Was
game
it an
with an
empty netter?
empty netter. Yeah.
Okay.
Connor McDavid, 5 minutes into the game, scores an incredible goal, just really showcasing his speed and what he's capable of.
He's coming.
Jake
He's coming for
Gensel
that
and
C, Crosby. Like,
Jake
like
Gensel
that.
and
That's my
Dylan
future
Larkin.
Captain Canada.
The two of them get some goals. I would have liked Binnington to save at least one of those, but again, at the end of the day, like
Yeah,
Binnington only allowed 2 goals. He did his job. It was, you
and
could
he
be
made a
like,
lot
oh,
of
I
great
wish he
saves in the
stopped one of
third.
those, but Canada couldn't score after that McDavid one. You can't expect to win a game 1-0. Like you got to put up more goals. So I
Yeah,
don't put that one on Binnington because again, I thought he played really well. He got an assist even. Like
yeah. He assisted on the one goal. He had
only
more
3
points
players
than
got a point that entire game, and Binnington was one of them.
yeah. So
Despite
you know what?
making some great saves. So you can't put on Binnington one bit for this. It really came down to just Canada couldn't find a way to get one by Hellebuck. The Americans played a great game. Brock Faber and Jacob Slavin together were a terrific pairing.
They played a lot of minutes.
Yeah,
I
and I
love them
believe
giving
Jake
Faber
Gensel
that
got
chance.
player of the game. Yeah, it was good
Yes,
to
he
see
did.
Faber get the bump up. He started on the third pair at the start of the tournament, and getting that chance to play with a guy like Jacob Slavin, I think was really good for him to just have a very, just an incredibly phenomenal player in terms of playing a shutdown game like Jacob Slavin. I thought was a perfect guy to put beside Brock Faber, who is the
Yeah,
youngest player for the Americans in this tournament. So
yeah,
it was a good
and
veteran
he's a
for him
minute.
to be with.
He's an absolute minute eater in Minnesota, so it makes sense that they went with him. Like, you know what? I wasn't sure when to bring it up, but I will take a second now to just say all four coaches I think have done a phenomenal job in this tournament. We saw, these are the lineups we think will work in everybody's first games, and they slowly evolve and they change them around and they try different combinations. And by the last two games for each team, most teams had it figured out. And like at this point, like so many of the lineups are like just so that much better. And like some of these uh line combinations that I really would not have thought of at all are
There's
just
one coaching
incredible.
gripe I have that I'm really passionate about, and we'll dive into when we get to the Sunday or the Monday games.
Sure.
Um, but is there anything else you have for this Canada US one? We got the first edition of it, not the second one that we've got coming up. But anything you have left on this one you want to say?
I'm no, it's just it was an incredible game, so fun to watch. We could also address it. 26-1. The US did beat
Yeah,
Canada. Crosby had been undefeated since uh, probably around when the dinosaurs were walking the earth when he
yeah.
was representing Canada. So, you know what? Good for the US, but they're looking to repeat their the path from 2010 in Vancouver where they lost to the US, came back in the finals and ended up winning.
Yeah, and that's one of the most iconic goals, I think. When
That's
you
the
ask
golden
hockey
goal.
fans, I think two. There's when people ask me what's most iconic goal in hockey, there's two. For me, it's obviously the Bobby Orr one
The
because
Bobby Orr and
obviously, and then pretty much anybody non-Canada probably won't say it, but for all Canadians, yeah, it is the golden goal in Vancouver.
yeah,
Um,
anytime somebody scores like a game-winning goal for the medal, it is the golden goal, but anytime somebody says, "Hey, remember the golden goal?" I immediately know which one they're talking about. Iginla to Crosby, like, yeah, that that
mhm.
that that's just the one. Until something cooler
um,
happens.
Last thing I'll say before we move on to the Monday games, shout out to Brandon Hagel. I thought that was huge of him to um, because he's a bit of a grimy player, likes to get in the dirty areas, mix it up, but he's not really a fighter. And
No.
to just have Matthew Tkachuk say, "Hey, we're going," and you're just like, "All right, yeah, let's do it." And then to say, he didn't do it for the cameras and whatnot. He did it for his country. I thought was a baller quote.
Really good quote.
Really,
He's had a
really kind of
lot of
proved
good
why
quotes
he
as
should
well.
be on this team. Yeah, I think there's a couple players on Canada, which we can dive into later if we want, that, go at this point in the tournament now. I don't think they should be. I was optimistic for every pick going in, but there's some guys looking at it now. I'm like, you probably shouldn't have been here.
The
But Brandon
guys,
Hagel has proved in every way, I think, to everybody that you can't say he shouldn't be on the team. His
yeah,
play this tournament has been great, and again, to go up against a much bigger player than him and Matthew Tkachuk, and again, you can either say he won or it was a 50-50. You can't say he lost the fight. And
yeah,
that's a little bit embarrassing for Matthew Tkachuk as a guy who's kind of has a reputation for, if he's going to fight, he always punches below his weight class. And he did that here, and he didn't get the better of the exchange. So I just want to put that out there that I thought Brandon Hagel really, you know, it just showed 100% why he deserves to be on this team. And yeah, I just think he had a not only a terrific tournament so far, but that fight, really kind of sealed the deal there.
yeah. And he had another really good quote the other day.
I was
I
gonna say
think what
I knew he had another one, but I couldn't remember it.
Yeah, I've been looking all over to find it. Luckily, I did watch the video, and I just remember it off the dome that it. I don't know if he said it recently or after the first game, but he said that he was very glad that the effort level was there for everyone else because trying to fall asleep the night before game one, and he was thinking, man, I hope I don't look like an idiot out there because I'm gonna put my head through a fucking wall for this team and I'm gonna be skating 100%. And
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
if everyone's treating it like the All-Star game, I guess I'll just look like a tryhard.
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
and
that's exactly what
that's
it was. Oh,
so
yeah,
good.
a great quote there. But let's
Um
move on to
I just
the
want to
Monday
quickly
games.
say Hagel has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 career fights in the NHL.
He has
So
5
yeah.
career fights.
So
Yeah, so not really a big
about
fight.
one a season, give or
Yeah,
take.
yeah, which
Yeah.
is exactly you kind of expect from a guy like that.
Yeah.
It's, there's games that get heated, and sometimes, yeah, you just need to drop the mitts and handle business, and he definitely showed that he can do that. So
Yeah. That was awesome. Um
I get on Sam Bennett for stepping up to Brady Kachuk as well. He
Yeah,
was
I mean, he kind of
really the
has
only
to.
guy on Canada that could, and it was very clear, after the game hearing about it, like the Kachucks and then Miller kind of hopped in. We're like dead set on like we're going out there and
They
fighting,
they
and
apparently had a three-person group chat, and they were like, "Hey, we should all three fight,"
yeah,
which I
and
think
you look at
pretty
Canada.
funny.
Colin Parayko did fight JT Miller, but again, he didn't really want to. So like Sam Bennett was the only guy that could go toe to toe with Brady Kachuk. Like that was kind
Yeah,
of the position he
and
was put in,
that's what
and
he's brought in for too. Like,
yeah, and we know he's
we
not afraid to fight, but to kind of go in and be like, you're gonna have to be fighting Brady Kachuk because you're the guy. I think is pretty baller, and I got to imagine he got a lot of tic taps and respect by his Canadian teammates for doing
yeah,
that, and making sure nobody else had to be the one to do that.
yeah. Um, let's dive into what you said before about which players you think at this point, now that we have a bit of a sample size, uh, who still deserve to be on this team? Who doesn't deserve to be on this team? Who did you think might not and has proved to be worthy of being on this team?
So the easiest way to do it is we'll just go through the positions. We'll just go through the players and we'll quickly go through them. Jordan Bennington, yes, should be on the team. Should he be the starter? No, I think there was two better options, but Jordan Bennington has not hurt this team whatsoever. Hill
I
and
agree.
Montembeau, we haven't seen either one of them, but I'll rip those two off the team in a heartbeat to get Mackenzie Blackwood and Logan Thompson there. Like,
Yeah.
obviously. Um, Kale McCarr, yeah. Josh Morrissey, yeah. Colin Parayko, I could do with him. I could do without with him. I think, you could bring in guys like Mackenzie Weegar, um, Really kind of Uyghur, but I get the sentiment to bring Colton Parayko as you kind of want a little bit more big bodies, especially when you see how big the US is.
Yeah,
So I like I would have Colton Parayko on the team, yeah. Probably as a third
yeah.
pair, not a second pair, but
I would say for that reason, I could take him or leave him because I do like Uyghur's game more. But for the fit for the team, yeah, I don't mind
you
Colton
kinda need
Parayko
at
near.
least one
I was
bigger
because
body on your
yeah,
blue line.
because I was pretty harsh on that pick when the teams came out, but he kind of proved me wrong a little bit. He's not been great for us, but he hasn't been a liability.
Yeah. Petrangelo, well, we already know he's not on the team. Travis Sanheim,
I
I
want him
like
on the
Thomas
team.
Harley. I like Thomas Harley's game more than Sanheim, honestly.
I
Thomas Harley coming in.
I don't
So,
disagree. I think Harley was one of the better defensemen on Team Canada in the one game he got in, but Sanheim in the game, the did he get into 1 or 2?
um, 2, because I believe he played against, Finland.
Yeah, he surprised me as well. I really didn't think that he was going to be a huge factor, but he was very noticeable out there, both offensively and defensively. So uh,
Yeah.
I was surprised, and I really liked him being out there.
Yeah, like, no disrespect Sanheim, but if I'm looking at it, I would replace Sanheim with Thomas Harley.
I would
And that's no
replace somebody
disrespect
else
to
with
Sanheim
Harley.
or his game at all. Shea Theodore would have been nice to have him. Devon Taves. Yeah. You know what I thought? I didn't think he looked I was worried about him in the game against the Americans because, the only reason he was no disrespect to him, but on this team was to play with Kale McCarr.
Oh,
And without Kale
100%. He would
McCarr,
tell you that, surely.
yeah. And without Kale McCarr in the game, I was like, oh shit, now what do we do with Devon Taves? I didn't I thought he played fine.
I'll do you one better. I thought he was pretty good. I would not want. I would be upset if he got taken off the team. Like I think he was really noticeable in pretty much every game. The least noticeable without Makar, I would
Yeah. And
say.
that, and that's just natural to happen.
But I similar to Sandheim, I was surprised at how often I was like, "Holy fuck, who's that? He looks really good."
Yeah.
Devon Taves, yeah. Also, a bit of muscle memory I didn't know my brain had. Seeing a red and white jersey and the announcer going, "Here comes Taves with the puck." Constantly, my brain's going, "What the fuck? Jonathan Taves is back?" And then I have to
Yeah.
remind
Yeah.
myself that it's a different Taves. But I really liked him in this tournament as well.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah, I wouldn't take him off this team though.
yeah,
100%. Like he deserves beer. Drew Doughty is a very tough one. Obviously, I was very excited to see that he got the call to the team,
yeah.
but and I you know, he's been average. He's had good flashes in the offensive zone, defensive zone, but he's made a lot of blunders and mistakes. Um,
He's a tough one.
he
He's the one I would
I
take
wouldn't
out.
put him on. I would take him off solely because I really do believe he rushed back from his injury to play in this tournament. I don't
Yeah,
believe he's fully healthy. I think if we
yeah,
had a fully healthy Drew Doughty, much different story. But I think he is still dealing with his injury. So
yeah.
I think
I
that's kind of
completely agree.
holding him back. So that's the only reason I would take him off. But if he was fully healthy, no doubt in my mind, I would still have him on this team. But with the
Yeah,
injury, I would take a fully healthy Uyghur or someone else.
yeah. I would. I think I would take him out, and I don't know if any of the guys on the left can play right, but the guys that we saw already play in the tournament, I would take out Doughty and I would put in Harley. Harley was just great shutdown. Drew Doughty, yeah, he was just one of those risk reward guys. He had bad blunders, he had great moments, he had insane pass up to Crosby for one of the goals. Like
Yeah.
he, yeah, he made really nice offensive flashy plays, and then he would just kind of get burned as well. And that's yeah, you just need guys who can be more of a net neutral, sometimes chip in when it comes to games like this, because it's funny. There's so much talent in these games, and yet a lot of the games are 3-1, 2-1. There's that 6-1 in there when the third period got blown open, but 3-1, 4-3. Like they're not incredibly high scoring games.
Yeah. And then with the forward, so I'll quickly go through the guys that I think should still be on this team. Um, Sidney Crosby, Brandon Hagel, Konechny, McKinnon, Marchand, Marner, McDavid, Point, Reinhardt, Stone. Um, Seth Jarvis, I like the pick. I was hoping for a bit more from him, but looking at it, I'd probably rather have a Tom Wilson in there, honestly.
Do you know
Um,
against Team US how much he played? Was he benched?
against the US, he played. Let me check here how much he
Because
played.
I distinctly remember a shift with about 4 minutes left in the game. I saw him out there and went, I think that's the first time I've legitimately even like registered that he exists
He
all
played
game.
11:07.
That's a lot of shifts where I just didn't know he existed,
Hmm.
which
So
means he isn't turning the puck over or anything. But
yeah, he's
in
not really
best on
doing anything
best,
good
you
or
kind of
bad.
yeah, in best on best, even those fourth liners, you need them to be noticeable good players, right?
Yeah. Um, Anthony Cirelli, no disrespect to him, but I just think in a tournament like this, I would have much rather have had a Mark Scheifele in that position. Um,
I get that.
and then Sam Bennett, like again, I like what he did. I like how he fought Brady Kachuk, but again,
I think his play was good.
you don't really need Sam Bennett if you have a Tom Wilson. So you could even you could go with the Sam Bennett there. You could go with the Anthony Cirelli, but I think whichever one would for me would be the 13th, because then again, then you just have Mark Scheifele and Tom Wilson in there, and I think that makes your forward core bigger first of all to kind of hang with some of those bigger guys on the Americans, and just a little more skill and goal scoring power with those two.
Yeah.
But overall, I don't hate really the like it's not like Canada's going to lose because they didn't bring the best players. They brought a very good team.
Yeah, there's no
The only
one
thing is
player that
maybe
you're
the
looking at like,
goaltending,
what
but
are they doing? Like,
yeah, like you could
yeah,
be like, yeah, Logan Thompson, Mackenzie Blackwood, Jordan Binnington isn't the reason Canada's lost any games. Like they
no.
lost, they beat Sweden. You would have liked in regulation, and um, again, I think Canada kind of let their foot off the gas. The Americans, again, you need to score more than one goal, and you beat Finland. It was a 4-1 game. It was a 4-0 game halfway through the third period, and then again, Canada kind of lets their foot off the gas. Finland gets one, and then they get two when it's a 6-on-5. So call it two power play goals essentially, if you want.
I think
It's not like Binnington hurt him.
John Cooper has done an incredible job coaching this team. Uh, I don't know why he was getting cute with it in the final five against Finland.
And that was
All
I
of a
was gonna
sudden
say
the
the one
lines,
coaching gripe I had
yeah,
was his line combinations, and I have it here. It was it was something small. It was rotating two players,
was it
and it just
McDavid
did
and
not work.
Marner?
He took McDavid away from Mark Stone and Braden Point and put him with Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel, and he took Mitch Marner away from Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel and put him up with Stone and Point.
Yeah,
Why?
which I get the idea of trying to put Hagel, Sorelli, McDavid to have Hagel and Sorelli try and get the puck. They're really good defensively, try and get possession, and then if you get it to McDavid, he can just ice the game. I get that concept, but these lines were working so damn well. And Mitch Marner's he can put the puck in the net, and he's really good defensively. Like the biggest reason that I wouldn't take Sorelli off the team is because Hagel, Sorelli, Marner is one of the best shutdown lines any country could make. And unfortunately, you're losing some scoring from Marner not playing up on a higher line, but uh I not a doubt in my mind we will see Hagel, Sorelli, Marner against the US against their top
Yeah,
lines.
I would
Probably line
assume so.
matching Austin Matthews.
But
Um
again, it was a
but
dumb decision by
but
Cooper
they
because
did
you just
not need to do
watched,
that. It
I
worked all
can't
game.
remember exactly what point in the third period it was, but McDavid, Point, and Stone were out there against Finland, and they were just cycling around in Finland's end for like 40 seconds, just working it. And then all of a sudden, next shift, it's like boom, he made those line changes, and
It was
Stone
right
Marner,
after they pulled the goalie. It was
yeah,
right after they
and
pulled the goalie.
Stone Marner Point was out there for um Finland's first goal to make, or well, technically second goal to make it a 4-2 game. And then McDavid, Charlie Hagel went out right after, and they were out there for the other one. It's like, I just don't know why you. I get the thought process, but it's like you're up 4-1. The team was still buzzing. They
Yeah.
weren't really letting their foot off the gas that much until you made those line changes. You
Yeah.
know,
And
they were counteracting and doing the opposite of what they did against Sweden. So
yeah.
I didn't. Again, you
I
can see the thought process behind it,
I
but
get the thought process looking at the lines because like a point can help maintain the puck when he's out there. Marner and Stone are both great defensively, so like it makes sense there. And then McDavid's speed with Hagel, Sorelli to get the puck, like you can see the vision, but it was working. It was just working. You didn't need to mess with it, and maybe he was playing with fire a little bit and seeing maybe he was testing stuff out what looks good for next game, but I do think before they made those changes in the final five, they kind of cracked the code and they figured out, McKinnon, McDavid on the same line. It just didn't really work insanely well. Crosby,
mhm,
McKinnon, absolutely do not split
yeah,
them up. And
yeah,
Reinhardt seems to know where to be with a guy like Crosby. He was clueless with McDavid. Like if he kept playing with McDavid all throughout this tournament, he legitimately might have been on my list of guys that like probably should have been left at home, but like I wouldn't mind seeing scratched or benched. Like Ryan, I don't think
yeah.
anyone
He
in this
was.
tournament made me yell at the TV more than Sam Reinhart, and it's purely an effort thing. It wasn't bad decisions. There was a lot of times where he just kind of one-handed swipe at the puck, and I'm like, it is now 4-3. This is a game again. What are you doing? Freaking grab the puck and throw it.
Mhm.
So
I did think against Finland he was one of Canada's better players. He did have 3 assists in that game, but like
yeah,
just an incredible way for that, like so fitting for that game to end. Crosby, just a massive open ice hit, and puck bounces right to Reinhardt, scoops it to Crosby, and he fires it from center ice into the empty net.
drains
Um,
it.
was a perfect way to cap that game off to send Canada to the final. Before we talk about the final game here, if you want to give us a little rundown of the final game of the round robin, that being the Sweden US game.
Um, this was a really fun game. Obviously, by this point, Sweden knows they are mathematically eliminated from the tournament, from getting to the finals. US knows they are in, so US, you know, I think Austin Matthews could have played. I think they sit him because why bother risking it? We know
Yeah,
he's taken injuries before. We want him against Canada. So you know what? Fair enough. Brady Kachuk leaves partway through the first after sliding into the post. Matthew Chuck wasn't there. Charlie McAvoy wasn't there. And they even rested Hellebuck, which I think was probably a pretty smart call. Um, they played Ottinger, which probably the right call. Would have been cool to see Swayman get into a game in Boston. Like I 100% see why the US did it, but it also would have been cool to see Swayman get some time in there.
hmm
Um, but yeah, Sweden came out and they were playing for pride, and goddamn did they. They went out there and played such an insanely good defensive game. Um, we mentioned it earlier. Samuel Ersson got second star of the game. Um, the announcers even said on the broadcast, "Well, I think we all kind of expected he was going to get first star." Like he was very confused. The arena was confused. Um, no disrespect to actual first star of the game, Jesper Bratt, third being Zach Werenski as well. But Urson saved 32 of 33 shots in that game, and there was a lot of really high quality chances that he had to save.
yeah,
Like,
he made a lot of good saves. It it's
especially being
it's
the
kind
third
of
goalie in on the team. Like,
yeah,
we didn't think he'd get to play.
it's kind of weird, right? Because we got 6 games in this round robin, and we've seen a common trend in 3 of them, which I think is a little weird. You look at the US Finland game. Finland comes out early in the game, not like super early, but like within the first half of the first period, and they score, and then they don't score after that. They end up losing 6-1. Canada and the US, McDavid goes out there and scores a highlight reel goal like 5 minutes into the game. Canada doesn't score the rest of the game. They lose that one. The Americans against Sweden here, Chris Kreider coming into the lineup. You knew he was going to score. Like it just felt like he's in the lineup. He's going to score. He scores 35 seconds into the game. The Americans don't score the rest of the game and they lose. Like that's kind
59
of
minutes,
crazy that
25
like
seconds without a goal after that.
that. Yeah, like that
It's a
three
long time.
games out of like half the games we've seen that where a team will score early on in the game and be buzzing, and then they just can't get another one the rest of the game. They go on to lose. Um,
And that that game, Sweden US, might be one of the biggest indicators of just effort winning out that
yeah,
I've seen in a good bit in a hockey game. Because the US, they played a pretty good game. They played 59 minutes of a total game. Sweden played 60, and they won because of it.
yeah.
Sweden, it was 1-1. The period was almost over, and US looked a little lazy out there. We'll get into the second period. We'll go do our thing. There's still a minute on the clock, brother. And Sweden forechecked like crazy. And Jesper Bratt just grabbed a nice pass from, was that one from Carlson?
No, that was from Nylander.
Yeah, Nylander to Bratt, and Bratt turns around and just rips it. There was a guy in front from Sweden, and the U.S. defenseman just wasn't pushing him out of the way. That screen took the goalie's eyes away. He had no shot on saving that.
Yeah,
And final score after the first 2-1. Final score after 60 2-1. Like they
yeah,
needed to play that entire first period, and it would have gone to
yeah.
OT.
Yeah, I think Sam Ersson, I thought he played a great game. Coming in originally not even on the roster, and then getting the tap with Jacob Markstrom. Yeah, he was Sweden's best goalie at the end of the day. At the end of the tournament, he
Yeah,
looked the best out of all three of their goalies. The numbers back it up. You just watch it, you're like, yeah, he was the best. So it was really cool to see him get in for a game and really make a statement again. Kind of weird he didn't get first star, but it is what it is. I think he's obviously still very proud of the way he played, and I'm sure his teammates are very proud of the way he played. And maybe Sweden's got another stud goalie coming up in the pipeline here that we'll
yeah,
see in a couple years or so.
yeah.
But
He's been pretty decent for the Flyers. It's tough at times. Their goalies haven't in the past few years haven't performed very well, so they might need to shore up on their defense a bit. But you know what? I
yeah,
think he's got a bright future.
yeah, I completely agree. But we know the Americans, they finished with 6 points. They had the two regulation wins. They had the one regulation loss. Canada had a regulation win, overtime win, and a regulation loss. That overtime win being over Sweden, which ended up being a tiebreaker. So we know that on Thursday we will have a rematch. We will have Canada versus the US. Let's talk a bit about this and give some predictions for the game and kind of where everything's at going into this one here.
Yeah. So I guess to start with, we'll start with who's going to play. I guess. I believe Canada's got pretty much the same lineup as the last game going into this one.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
if
fully expect Jordan Bennington to start. They haven't
Yeah,
confirmed it, but he's played all three games so far. If you didn't go to Aiden Hill against Finland, you're not going to Aiden Hill now. You're going to go with Bennington, who again
a
hasn't
lot of
hurt
people
Canada.
a lot of people were questioning him after the end of the Finland game, like, "Oh, he started to collapse." Did you see any of the goals, man? No, it was the team around him that collapsed.
Yeah,
It wasn't. It was not the goalie. Those were all very dangerous shots, tons of screens. Just yeah, absolute chaos. I don't put any of those final goals on him. At most
yeah, no,
one, and that would be the first one that Esa Lindell scored, and even that perfectly placed shot, post and in from the far side, just over the pad, under the glove, like that. Not a lot of goalies are saving that.
yeah. That's like
Um,
it's just not on. I mean, well, that one you could maybe put on Bennington. You maybe like to have him say, but yeah, the second and third one, there wasn't much he could do. He made a bunch of incredible saves before that to try and keep it a 4-1 game.
yeah, he
Like
made a lot of good ones.
you just got to help your goalie out, and Canada didn't do that there. So
Hopefully, that's a learning lesson for them. Um, what are their healthy scratches going to be then? Do you think any of those guys get in,
I think
like a Jarvis?
I think Jarvis and Harley are probably the two sitting. I
I
think you
think
just
so
roll
too.
with the guys that you had. I think Konechny can bring a bit more physicality and kind of scumminess that you might need.
Yep.
So
He just doesn't really fit into the lineup the way they have it now, and these lines have been great. I fully expect these to lines that they used for the majority of the Finland game to be what they run with. Like Point and
yeah,
McDavid together was has just been unreal. I love their chemistry. Crosby McKinnon has just been phenomenal, as well as Reinhardt on that line. I think all three of those guys mesh incredibly together. Hagel,
yeah.
Sorelli, Marner is they can score, but they're mostly going to be the trusted to shut down the top guys of the other team, I think.
Mhm.
And who
Marchand, Bennett, and Konechny, like that's a
who
little bit
wants
of
to play
a
against that?
grinder line. Like, yeah,
Nobody wants to play against that. That's
don't not
awful.
expect them to play big minutes, but when they go out there, they're gonna have their assignments. They're gonna know what their job is, and with how hard those guys play every shift, you know that they're gonna go out there and execute on that and make the most of again what is going to be very limited ice time for them.
Yeah, they'll get the shorter amount of ice time, but it's all in the name of when you go out there, you go off like a firecracker, and I think they're gonna kill it on that role.
Yeah,
And yeah, I
the
think there's
the,
no
the
reason to change the
defense will
defense
will, will,
either.
will stay the same. Yeah, the Americans though is the tricky one as there is a lot of injury reports, a lot of stuff going around them, so we don't fully know what their lineups are going to look like. But we can kind of do our best to kind of give an estimation for where we think um, these players are going to be come Thursday night. Um, so where do you want to start with all these guys? Because there's quite a few.
Um, so do you have this pulled up on Daily Faceoff? Are
I
you looking
can.
at anything? Okay, I just wasn't sure if you were just going off the dome or not because I'm looking at it and I have there's so much stuff that's going to be moved around. I don't think Chris Kreider's going to play, and they have him on the second line. Um, I assume they're gonna Matt like right now. Austin Matthews is day to day. Brady and Matthew Kachuk are both day to day. That being said, I think all three of them are going to play. So I think top line of Gensel, Matthews, Matthew Kachuk, maybe,
I don't
or
know. I
maybe
think I think
Eichel.
you probably go with Jake Gensel. They're probably just going to go to what was working before that, which being Jake Gensel, Austin Matthews, Jack Hughes. You roll Jack Eichel with
Oh,
the
Jack
two
Hughes was
Kachuk
up there.
brothers. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because then your third line was JT Miller, Matt Boldy, and Kyle Connors, I guess, started on the first line, but now
Oh,
he's
I
been
didn't
bumped
see
down to the fourth
he's
line.
he's down the fourth. I imagine he was
So
probably rotating through once Brady Kachuk left the game.
yeah, so
So
bottom
like
six,
these are all weird.
I don't know what you do, but I'm assuming top six is probably Gensel, Matthews, Jack Hughes, and then you've got Jack Eichel and the two Kachuk brothers.
Were they playing the Kachuk brothers on the same line at any point
Yep.
in the other games?
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
they were out there, Jack Eichel. They were putting in work. It was kind of
yeah,
on, and it
that's a
wasn't like
nasty
for
line. That's a
pro. I
great
don't
line.
think for like prolonged stints because obviously with the injuries and whatnot. But when they were together, yeah, they're really good. So I imagine they're going to go back to that.
Yeah,
And then yeah, the bottom six, it's tough to tell. I
probably
don't know how that's going to shake out.
probably. Well, I guess that would mean JT Miller's moved down there. Probably Miller.
Larkin,
Lark.
Boldy, maybe.
I was gonna say you got to move Miller or Larkin to the wing because those guys, neither of those should be on the fourth line. Like
Yeah,
they've
and then
both
fourth
been
time
so
probably
good.
Brock Nelson, Trocheck, and Kyle Connor. I think Kyle Connor's really doesn't have the trust as much of the coach, so his ice time has definitely
Yeah,
been
especially with how Boldy's
diminishing
been
since the
playing.
start. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what?
Um.
Having some speed and some shooting on that bottom pairing isn't a bad thing either.
Yeah. The defensive pairings, as of right now, we know that for sure that Charlie McAvoy isn't playing. Um. We know the overlooming thing out there that like Quinn Hughes is traveling to Boston.
Yeah,
The US was initially told he can't join, and then an hour later, it's like, okay, yeah, Quinn Hughes can now come join you. And then a couple hours later, it's like, but he can't play unless someone else. is injured and can't play.
He's in the
So
Harley spot. He's the
yeah,
emergency guy in case he's not on the roster. He's the emergency defenseman if somebody goes down. So
yeah. So he can't practice with the team. He can only practice if one of the other guys is for sure ruled out. Like it can't be a day to day. It's like someone's got to for sure be ruled out
yeah,
for him to come in and play. So as of right now, the pairings is looking like Jacob Slavin, Brock Faber. Yeah, you ain't touching that when you're leaving that as
no,
is.
that was
Zach
great.
Werenski, Jake Sanderson. I thought they were totally fine together. I think Jake Sanderson's made the most of his opportunities, and
That's
then
pretty
Adam
solid.
Fox and Noah Hanifin.
Yeah, there's nothing to complain about here. Um, I'm gonna put you on the hot spot a little bit here, and just let's just outright say it. Do you think somebody gets labeled as injured and Quinn Hughes plays in this
No,
finals?
I don't think so.
Interesting.
The,
I
the, the only way
genuinely
is
don't know.
is if
It's a
someone is if
50-50.
someone gets sick.
I
Unless
mean,
they come out and say someone's sick, because all of them finished the game. They're all healthy right
I
now.
mean, so did Matthews in their other game, and then he didn't play. He didn't play against Sweden the other night. Like he didn't get injured in Canada,
Yeah, but
but
they just pulled them for to get Chris Kreider in basically.
yeah, but
So
they could
like you
pull somebody
pull
else
one of
to
these guys and just say it's a little bit different though, because you can't scratch these guys. You have to say that they're injured.
yeah, and I'm just saying, I'm basically saying they'd lie. Like Sanderson, walk with a limp for a few days so we can have Quinn Hughes and win the championship. I'm not saying Jake Sanderson would like that. He'd probably be pissed. He's played well, but I'm wondering, would the coach say, like, how many times can we see the Vegas Golden Knights fuck around with LTIR before we go, okay, maybe
I
not everyone's super honorable about this. Like, yet, it sucks. We don't like them for it, but they also won a Stanley Cup doing it.
I
You
almost
know,
wonder if in
like
cases
Quinn
like
Hughes is
this,
easily their best defenseman.
100%. But I wonder in cases like this, if the NHL's like, if they come out and say, "Oh yeah, Jake Sanderson's got a bad knee or something, he can't play." I wonder if the NHL's like, "Well, who oh, is that what your doctor said?" Well, we've got a doctor of our own, and we want him to take a look at Sanderson and see if he's really injured or not, because the rules are so kind of clouded with this tournament. And I think in the NHL's case, especially because like
They're
this is kind of
sketchy
their
with
big
NHL
thing that
teams,
they're
and it's even
doing
weirder.
before the World Cup that they're going to do in 2028. Was kind of a trial run and to get pumped up for it. I think the last thing they want is for the US to just be like, "Oh, yeah, this guy's injured. He's not playing. Quinn Hughes is coming in, but that guy's fine." It would be a really bad look on this tournament, especially if you know you do that. You bring Quinn Hughes in. He's a lead out there, as we know he's going to be, and the US wins. It's a very bad look on the NHL and this tournament. So
I don't think that's how people would look at it, though. I think people would.
100%.
I think
That's how
people would
people
be.
would look at it,
I don't think, because the one thing keeping Quinn Hughes
because
out,
you're
it's
basically
not
just
it's not
bending
a
the rules
contract.
to
It's
win.
not a contract dispute or anything, though. The reason he's not in is because the NHL made up rules and said he can't, right?
But
Like
if you're Canada,
he was
why don't
going
you
to be
just
on
say
he was
why
going
don't
to
you
be
just
on the
say, "Oh,
roster.
but if you're that doesn't matter though, because he's not. He was removed from the roster and Jake Sanderson was put on there."
I think people will be happier to see Quinn Hughes play because they want to see the best players play for best on best. They'll be much happier than they will be angry about the US
But
breaking
then
the
what
rules.
would to stop Canada from being like, "Yeah, Montembeau, Hill, Bennington, all sick. We're bringing in Logan Thompson
Yeah.
and Mackenzie Blackwood, and you can't do anything about it because we need a goalie. Our guys are sick."
I
I like. Don't
I
get me wrong. Everybody wants to see Quinn Hughes play. It would make this final game that much more
I
exciting. But
I think the difference is not only would that be having multiple guys fake the injury, but also they didn't get picked for the team. They just didn't get picked. Quinn Hughes, he did get picked. We all know
it doesn't
he was
matter that he
picked.
was picked, though. He was removed from the roster. He
But
was not
that's
an
what
active member of the roster day one of the
I'm
tournament.
I'm talking in the court of public opinion, not of what the rules are. The rules are
But
he is
that,
not on the roster
but
and
but we're
he shouldn't be
talking
able to
about
play.
the rules. We're not talking about public opinion. Doesn't matter in this
No,
tournament.
but you were saying that it's going to be a bad look on the tournament. That's the part I disagree with. It would not be like it would be against the rules to fake an injury and have Quinn Hughes join the team. 100%. You can't fake an injury.
That's
That
a bad
that
look though
that's
on it.
but I don't think anybody cares. I don't think it's a
Well,
bad look because
I think
it's a bad
everyone
look to not have
outside
Quinn Hughes
of
play.
I think all Canadians would, or a good majority if they end up losing.
Fair.
Because like you're looking at it, you're like, wow, we have Kale McCarr finally out. They don't have Quinn Hughes. That's a big advantage. All of a sudden, if it's like Jake Sanderson's out and Quinn Hughes is in, that's a huge advantage for the US there. So like
Sure.
hockey fans in general who don't give a shit, sure, but a lot like Canadians fans, they wouldn't be
I
happy about it.
I
To me,
wouldn't.
I'm
I wouldn't.
indifferent because it gives
I was gonna
Canada a
say
huge advantage if Quinn Hughes is out. But if he's in, it makes the game that much more exciting, and we're truly getting best on best. So to me,
exactly, and that's why I'm
it
saying I
doesn't
wouldn't
matter.
be
But
mad.
I
And
don't like the idea of doing the faking an injury to bring a guy in.
I don't either.
That's the
I don't
part that
like that.
I mean, I
It's a
think the league
very
would,
slippery slope. It's
yeah,
a very
and
slippery
I
slope.
think the league would really look into the matter
The,
and
the thing is,
because again, it's
we
like,
know they don't. We
but we
know
don't
that
know
they
that in
don't.
this tournament because
Uh,
we've never witnessed something like this before.
So this, but then that would be saying this is viewed as more important than the Stanley Cup playoffs because we see shenanigans with this every year on who's injured. Oh, ow, ow, I can't play. I can't even practice. I'm game ready. Day 1 of April. But
But
that's
you, then
fine.
you
But that's fine.
but you
Nobody
also
talks
have to
about
look
that.
at
But
it.
then
That
all
player
of a
also
sudden,
and that team has to go without them from, for 20 games from the trade deadline to the end of the regular season.
yeah,
So, look at Vegas. They did that a couple years ago. They missed the playoffs because they had so many guys on LTIR. Were they
yeah,
really injured, or was it so they could be over the cap come playoff time? We don't fully know, but we know they ended up missing the playoffs. And if you had even one of those guys in your lineup from trade deadline to the end of regular season, you probably make it because you just barely missed out.
yeah.
So
I yeah, I get both sides of it for sure. I just at the end of
I
the
think it's
day,
just important for the league because it's
I want to see
the
best on best, and they would be bending the rules. They would be doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. You know, Quinn Hughes should be on Team USA. They
but he willingly chose not to play. That was his
but
choice.
But he didn't choose because he's Ovechkin going to the All-Star game and said, "Fuck it, I don't want to." He was injured. And now they're in the finals and it's one game. He's had an extra week to heal. Like they're for Team USA, it's different than an NHL team in that there's no LTIR. He couldn't have been on the injured reserve and then joined later. It was either play or you're not on the team. And
Mhm.
he couldn't play at that point, but he can play now. So it it would be a fucked up way to get him on the team, but it was also kind of a fucked up reason that he's not allowed to come in now to begin with, in my opinion.
See, I disagree. I think if you've got your healthy roster, that's your team. Like
He just should
if
have been on it
but he chose not to.
because he couldn't have played. He was injured,
Exactly. It's the same
but now
reason
he's
Alex
healthy.
Petrangelo's not here because he chose not to because he was injured. Like you don't even have to you don't even have to use the argument for what it was. You could literally just say Sam Montembeau has the flu. We need to bring up a third stringer just in case, and then you could bring in Logan Thompson. It's like he's not on the team. And at the end of the day, whether
I
Quinn
view
Hughes
that as
was
so
or
different,
wasn't,
in my
he
opinion.
wasn't on the team though.
I
Again,
know
like for
that
me, I don't care whether Quinn Hughes plays or doesn't because I'm a Canadian, so like I'm a little bit biased to one side, but again, I do want to see best on best. But it
yeah.
doesn't matter because at the end of the day, Quinn Hughes wasn't on the final roster.
Yeah.
What it comes down to.
But that's the bookkeeping way. I'm talking about what's right, not what's right by the NHL's rule. And what I think is right
What are you
is
saying? What's right?
I'm saying that Logan Thompson wasn't injured. He just wasn't picked for the team. Quinn Hughes was injured. He was on the team. He was going to be on the team, and then he missed
But again,
being
he
having his name
chose
written down.
not to. He chose not to come and play
Yeah.
because he was injured.
I mean,
But by
we're
that
just gonna
account, though, you
we're just
get
gonna
to
be
the
talking in circles about this
but
all
say for
day
the World Cup
because
then. But say for the World Cup of hockey, Canada could name 5 guys that they know are injured and then be like, "Hey, they're not come because they're injured. We're now going to bring these 5 guys." but then later on the term be like, "Okay, now we're gonna start bringing these guys
Well,
over
so
because
you
we've
don't.
let them rest up." It's like
So
you
you
and that's why I'm saying this is why it's a big point for the NHL is this is kind of your setting the precedent. This is
right.
your again, it kind of comes down to it's your trial run. So,
But
you kind of have
what are
to
you
walk
supposed
on a
to?
fine line with it
But
because
are
you're
these
you're
the
setting
rules
a
we want?
precedent for your NHL tournaments.
I think it's the wrong precedent. I don't want the precedent to be you can't play for game one, so you're not representing your team at all this year. You can't represent your country because
That's the way it
you
goes.
weren't
It's
able to
it's
play.
it's the same as other teams though.
I
It's like if you're a
I
team
just
that's in
think
the
best on
Stanley Cup
best is better
playoffs,
with
you
Quinn
can't just
Hughes.
be like, "Oh, guy goes down injured, we're gonna go grab this player from overseas and bring him over." It's like you have your roster you submitted. Like I think it's fine that Quinn Hughes can come over
I
and be there on
I don't see it
on
like that.
standby, but I think it's got to be like if there's an actual legitimate injury, not just we're gonna scratch this guy and put him in. Like if
Yeah, it should have to
Jake
be
Sanderson,
a
who
real
if
injury
I'm
for
Jake
sure.
Sanderson, I'm hiring the most high end security possible. I'm staying away from my teammates. I'm hiring a private chef so no one else is cooking my food. Like I'm living in a bubble until Thursday night. Like that is what Jake Sanderson should be doing for his own benefit. Um, if for whatever reason he's working out, breaks a leg or something, gets injured, okay, then Quinn Hughes could come in. But again, it's for me if Quinn Hughes plays, it's again because it's got to be from an injury. It's the
Yeah,
same thing as how Thomas Harley couldn't practice with Canada because Cale Makar was still looking like he was going to play versus the
yeah.
US. Thomas
The
Harley had to come in raw dog because
the
again
difference for
because
me is
of the
Harley
rules.
wasn't ever going to be picked for the initial team. We know Quinn Hughes would have. I know he wasn't, but he in a perfect world to me, there is no roster, by the way. Anybody who is an NHL player who plays for Canada or US should be eligible for this game. And obviously they'll
No,
have
because
and
then
obviously
that just gets too messy though.
I I, I don't care. I think that's how it should be. And you know, 30, 40, hell, 50 if they're really hopeful guys can fly to the city that's happening and they think maybe I'll get a call. But, the team is
No,
obviously like these
because you
25 guys, these are our go-to guys. The other guys don't need to show up for practice, don't be there, but we could pick you if we wanted to. So, maybe keep an eye out. That's how I think it should happen.
you can't though. You can't do that because and probably would have to be a coach on a team. But like, if you could just bring anybody, why wouldn't you just then, who's a healthy scratch on Tampa? Just I'm using John Cooper because it would probably have to come from
Cam
a
Atkinson.
Cam Atkinson. Um, let's assume Atkinson's a lot bigger than he is. But like, what if
Sure.
if you could just pick any players? What would stop Canada from being like, all right, Cam Atkinson, who in this world is 6'4", 220 pounds. He's built like Tom Wilson. You bring
Yeah.
up for the American game, it's like go out there, just run people, injure them, do whatever you can, and then if you're suspended, okay, you're out, and we just bring back in whoever we want for the next game. That's the whole point of having a roster is so you can't just weave in and out between players and stuff like that, basically.
You know what?
Because you would probably
That
start to see
then
stuff like that happen of you just
then you
bring
know
in
what?
a goon
Make
to
a
go
task
out there and
make a task
handle
force.
business and then just sit out.
Get
Well,
they have a whole group of people that vote on awards. That's like the Writers Association, and they have the whole Players Association. They have all these. Just get a bunch of guys who have been in the league, around the league for 30, 40 years, trusted names, and just, hey, if
mhm.
you don't like a pick for a game, veto it. Just straight up. Like that, it sounds insane, but like,
Yeah, you can't do that.
Remp,
That just
Remp,
becomes way too messy.
why? Any of the guys that are in the tournament right now, they would all be fine. The next 20 guys, they would also be fine. If America tries to bring in Matt Rempe, I think he's American. If they try
No,
and
he's
bring in
Canadian. He's a Calgary boy, actually.
there you go. If Canada
He's a
tries
Calgary
to
boy.
play Matt Rempe, then the council that be hockey just says, "Come on, guys, we know what you're trying to do. Piss off."
What
And
about a
would
guy like Tom Wilson, though? is the
So,
perfect example.
he went to the All-Star game last year. He has a history of scoring goals. Yeah, he can play.
But if Canada's bring him for the sole purpose of going out there just to knock some heads off, and then he's not playing the rest of the tournament, again, it just becomes too messy. Like the whole point is you name a roster, and
I I think it's more of an issue of integrity of the game at that point, and then you try and find a way to mitigate that. I'm not a rule maker, but I think it could be done.
it just becomes too messy at that point, though.
I
You know,
think
having
they'd be
having
able
to
to
do
figure
all
it out.
that extra stuff to kind of weave in and out, like it's just a whole lot of
I would
just
rather that
behind the
and
scenes
than not
stuff.
have
And
Quinn Hughes able to play.
but Quinn
I
Hughes
want to see
can
best. I
if
want to see
someone
best
just
on.
has to be injured.
But yep.
Because it's just unfair to a player like a Jake Sanderson is on the team being like, "You were here the whole time, but
No,
someone else got
it's not
injured,
unfair.
and now
He's not
we're
this.
gonna yank you."
It's not unfair at all. He's not one of the six best American defensemen,
Doesn't
so
matter,
he
he was
shouldn't be
named to the
playing.
team. Quinn Hughes wasn't. Jake
Quinn
Sanderson
Hughes.
got the spot because
I
Quinn
hate.
Hughes backed out.
All right. We're ending this conversation
He
because
I'm just
it's
saying, though.
Quinn Hughes was
Again, I'm
named to the
not saying
team.
Quinn Hughes
He's
shouldn't
the
play,
best
but
American.
someone's gotta get injured. I'm
Yeah,
just saying, like, I'm saying
that
that's
though
just how the rule is.
that's how the rules is. The rules are bad, and that's
I
not
don't
how
think they're
I think
bad.
it should be. I
I don't
think
think
they're
they're
bad.
bad, though.
You don't think they're bad, but regardless, you know what? Let us know if you're watching this on YouTube. If you want to follow us on any of our socials, go let us know what you think of this situation because I genuinely 50-50. I have no idea how it's gonna pan out. Quinn Hughes might not play because there's no injuries. I could see them saying, "Oh, Sanderson took a shot block. Hannafin did a shot block. Somebody, their ankle hurts there day to day. They're week to week. They won't even miss a game for their NHL team, but it allows Quinn Hughes to get in. Like, I actually have no idea if that'll happen or not. I could very realistically see it happen either way.
I 100% could see it happening, and I I could see it happening, but I don't expect it to. As again, I
Yeah.
think it comes down to these players. These players have a lot of pride, and they want to be out there representing. They want to represent their country. Yeah, they want to win, but playing in this game means so much to them and what they've done this tournament. So, if the coaches tell them, "Hey, you're sitting," I would be very curious to see if these players are like, "Yeah, I'll sit and watch from the stands," or if they're like, "No, I'm playing. You picked me to be here. I've played all these games. I've earned my right," as these players have. Like they have
Yeah.
earned their right. Quinn Hughes is better, yes, but again, he hasn't gone through the hardship of this tournament and the the physical games we've endured, whereas these other players have. So I would be very curious to know, yeah, if they asked a Jake Sanderson or a Noah Hannafin, because it would come down to
Yeah.
one of those two. I'm
I
probably Jake
think so.
Sanderson though.
Yeah.
Um, I'd be
It
curious to know if he'd be like, "Yeah, I'll sit," or if he's like, "No, I've earned
I
this opportunity, and and this is what I wanna do. I wanna
yeah.
play." I would be very curious to see a situation like that and see what the player would do.
I I I really think in my opinion, it comes down to do the coaches have the balls to ask one of these players to sit? Because in my
And
mind,
I don't think they do.
I I think I think literally any six of them, like 90% chance they say yes to sitting if asked. And I'm not saying that's right at all. Um, but it's hockey is a very tribalistic sport. Sports are just a tribalistic thing. It's very you put the crest above the name on the back. You do what's best for the team. If you don't, you're a pariah. Nobody wants you on your team. You're selfish. We don't like it. Like it's a whole thing. It's a culture thing, and uh, for
Would
better or for
you
worse, it's there. And
you said
I
selfish, so if Jake Sanderson
it's
was
not selfish.
asked.
No, it's
No, okay,
viewed
okay,
as
so you
selfish.
are okay, so we're on the same
I
page with that,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's definitely not selfish. Absolutely not. You know, they're they'd be asking him, giving him a choice. So he has two choices, a yes or a no. He wants to play the game. I don't think it's wrong at all for him to say, "Screw you, I want to play."
Mhm.
But if they lose that game, there's a good chance everyone's looking over going, "Could have had Quinn Hughes." and
Yeah, but no one will
that's
come
not
because
right. That's not right.
anybody could have stepped down. You know, you could look to the guy, but you could also be like, I could have voluntarily sat out. If I'm
Yeah,
Vincent Trocheck, Matt Boldy, Brock Nelson, Dylan Larkin, Kyle Connor, they could all be sitting there like, I could have just put my hand up and
yeah,
I could have sat this one out. You
yeah,
know, so and that's
and
what it comes down to. Like it's a brotherhood, it's a bond these guys are creating. If you win as a team, you lose as a team, but that's the mindset that every player in this tournament has. So
yeah.
I don't think that they would look down on someone if they were like, no, I've earned the opportunity. I'm
I
not
think
sitting out.
I think that would be a very interesting split. I think some players would look down on it and some would not at all. I have no idea what the split would be. I think a lot of the management would though. I think it's like it could be anywhere from a 50-50 split to a 70-30 for how the players view it. I think the
Yeah,
office it's going to be like
but if managers
90%
mad at you, you just flip them
90%
the
are
bird
bad.
and say, "You brought me. You
Well,
shouldn't have picked me to be on the team then."
yeah, it's
'Cause I'm always on the player side.
oh, no,
I
I
would never
agree.
be on
I'm
the
not saying
manager
the
side. If I'm the player, you just say, "Hey,
yeah, I'm
you
saying
brought me. You
the
knew
front
what you were
office
getting
would be
into."
bad for that.
Yeah,
But unfortunately, the front office of hockey teams have a lot of power of, who gets played, what happens, it yeah.
especially Hockey
It's not
Canada.
yeah.
Hockey
Yeah.
Canada is by far the worst for yeah, just
Well, as the rumor goes, they some of their guys just didn't like Logan Thompson, so he didn't make the team.
yep, yeah.
They who is it? Peter DeBoer?
Peter DeBoer and Bruce Cassidy.
Yeah. Like
Allegedly, we don't know for sure, but we can kind of assume because, like, why wouldn't you bring Logan Thompson?
it has been rumored that that they were not fans of Logan Thompson during his time in Vegas. Uh, I've not heard anybody else ever have a bad thing to say about him, so you know it's not a great look on them. But we don't for sure know what happened.
Yeah.
But either way,
But as it stands,
well,
the defensive pairings is Slavin, Faber, Wensky, Sanderson, then Hannafin, Fox.
I
Very well
don't think
could
that's
change. Quinn
changing.
Hughes could come in. I'm assuming that these will be the pairs that they do end up rolling with.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
time will
if
tell.
if they
We won't
do
know for sure.
if they do get Quinn Hughes in, I think the bottom pair stays the same. I think the top pair probably becomes the second pair, and then you go Werenski Hughes.
See, I think you go Fox Hughes. Quinn Hughes is an offensive play driver. Wensky is. I don't think you can put those two together, especially when they're both left-hand defensemen. I think you have to let them be on the left side and thrive in their
Is Quinn Hughes
respective
a
position.
left defenseman?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought Quinn Hughes was on the right.
So you probably go you don't split up Slavin and Faber. That's your
No,
shutdown pair. You can't put
no.
together a better shutdown pair than them. You probably go Adam Fox, Quinn Hughes, just your in terms
Okay,
of
yeah,
skill and talent, your 1-2 punch, and then Hannafin and Werenski.
yeah, yeah. I
Which
thought he was right, a right side guy. So yeah, I think it would be Fox then.
yeah, which would make sense, and it makes you wonder for something like that, like a guy like Werenski, um, how much opportunity he loses, like because again, like I've said, he's been in all situations, offensively and in the neutral defense, he's been the Americans' best defenseman. You can easily make the argument that he's been their MVP of the tournament. His ice
He's
time would be
he
so diminished with a Quinn Hughes coming back.
Yeah, he's tied for most points in the tournament with Sidney Crosby alone. They're the
Yeah,
only two guys with 5 points through 3 games.
yeah.
So
So
yeah,
he is a guy that would he wouldn't be out there near as much. He would be one of those guys sitting on the bench a lot more, which would
yeah,
suck because again he's been incredible.
yeah,
Genuinely, with Quinn Hughes' injury, I don't know if Quinn Hughes makes more of a difference coming in for this game than the level Zach Werenski's at right now.
yeah. Zach Werenski's been
Like,
playing
and
incredible
that's
this
not even saying
season,
Quinn Hughes is
and
bad. It's just how um, electric of a player Zach Werenski has been.
yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, if Quinn Hughes can make it into the game, yeah, like just I'm almost wondering if you just, instead of having like the set pairs, you just roll people through the lineup. You maybe see if
But again,
Adam
you
Fox can
it's
take a
tough
couple
because
extra shifts.
you rotate like 4 guys between 2 pairs because again, I don't think you can split up Slavin and Faber.
Yeah,
Like that is your pairing to go out there and shut down either McDavid's line or Crosby's line.
yeah,
Like that's going to be their job. It's going to be like we don't even care if you sniff doing anything in the offensive zone as long as you keep them from scoring. That's all they have to do. That's all they got to worry about.
yeah.
Um, final prediction. What's your
And
final prediction
and
for the final
goaltending
game?
will be Connor Hellebuck as
Oh
well in
yeah,
the final game.
yeah, Hellebuck
We
without
know
a
the
doubt.
answer, but it should be said.
Yeah,
Ottinger played well enough as well. He will still be the backup for that game, I got to imagine.
yeah.
Uh, Sorry, what were you just saying there? Final
Final
predictions?
prediction. Yeah.
I predict this is going to be a really fun game to watch. My God, do I hope it's a close game. I hope we're not going into the third already knowing, or at least thinking we know who's won. I'm, you know what? I did it before. I'm going to do it again. I'm going for the homer pick. I'm going Team Canada. I would not be shocked if US won, but it truly a 50-50. Both these teams are so good. They have so many different X factors. Like they they have the much better goalie, but uh, they don't have a guy on the
US is a
level
lot
of
more banged up.
they don't have guy on the level of McKinnon, less alone Team Canada Crosby or McDavid. Like, yeah,
And if no Quinn Hughes for the Americans, they don't have, again, Zach Rent's been good, but they don't have anyone on the level of Makar.
yeah,
So it's, Canada's got the high end, top end talent, but the Americans got the better goaltender, which is a big reason. That's why they were able to steal that game
Hellebuck
earlier
was
on in the
huge.
tournament.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
didn't
go with
he?
Canada as well. Again, homer pick. I think Canada wins 3-2, and I think they do it in overtime.
I I was gonna predict 3-2 as well. So you know what? I'm gonna double down with you on 3-2. I think Canada is gonna win with a late goal. I think we're getting a goal a minute and a half left, something like that,
You think?
after a tie
Okay.
game. I think late in the game it'll be tied and they'll overcome the odds right at the end before it goes to OT.
You know what? I like that. I like that pick there. Actually,
Give me who you think will get the golden goal, the game-winning goal in the golden medal game. Give
Nathan
me
McKinnon.
one for each team.
I'm gonna go with
If either
Nathan
team wins.
McKinnon, as everything he's been doing around the net seems to be going in, especially with Crosby. Crosby's always looking to find him. Um, for the Americans, I am going to go with JT Miller.
I like that pick.
He's been crashing to the net every game. He's been fighting in the dirty areas. Hasn't put up a goal on the board yet, but I do expect him. If there was someone to get one, I think he would get one by just driving to the net and creating some havoc.
Yeah. For me, it's very tempting to pick Gensel. He's been playing so well. I also kind of want to pick Eichel because he's been out of his mind. But one guy that I have seen get a lot of chances out there, and a large part because of his speed, I'm going with Dylan Larkin. That guy has been flying
Ooh,
out there, and we've already seen him with a really nice shot against Canada before. He got the game-winning goal in the last one. I think Dylan Larkin could do it for Team US.
okay.
For Team Canada, I mean, obviously McKinnon would be a great pick. Crosby would as well. There's a lot of guys here, but I am gonna go with Connor McDavid.
Connor
I
McDavid.
think,
Yeah.
as absolutely goofy dumb as it is to say, there's still sometimes a question mark around McDavid because he has not won a Stanley Cup. Can he show up in the big games? Goes out there, wins a Conn Smythe on the losing team. oh, but he didn't win. This guy shows up when it matters, and
Yeah.
I think I think we might see a little bit of a now that we've got best on best back, we might see a little bit of a passing of the torch in a bit more of an official manner from Crosby to McDavid,
Yeah.
and McDavid's going to
That
get the
definitely
golden
could.
goal,
Yeah.
and I'd love
Um,
to see it.
all right. Well, those are our final predictions for the championship game taking place on Thursday in Boston, Canada, and the US. If you like hockey, if you want to talk hockey, if you want to let us know all your thoughts about the Four Nations, you can do so. You know where to find the socials. They're down in the link description of every episode. Click the link, come over, talk hockey. Those Braden. We are a little bit pressed for time, so we're going to rapid fire these. I'm going to hit you with a blind ranking. I have 5
I love it.
defensemen. This is Four Nations edition.
So only
You
Four Nations
are,
guys.
yeah. So you're
Okay.
going to blind rank these 5 defensemen based on their play in the Four Nations.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you said that
not
because
not just them overall their play in the Four
yeah,
Nations.
I was. I'm glad you said based on their play because I was going to have to ask like, does this include Quinn Hughes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um First defenseman Josh Morrissey.
Morrissey, he has been very good. I'm going to assume that you're going to do a player from each team. Morrissey's been really good. God, has he been Canada's best defenseman? There's been a lot
Could
of good
make that
defensemen.
argument. Could make that argument.
I I'm trying to guess who else. We're doing 5, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else you're going to do, so I'm going to go 3. I might
3
regret
for Josh Morrissey.
I might regret that. I kind of wanted to go 2, but we'll see.
Ryan with Morrissey at 3. Next defenseman up, we have Brock Faber.
Brock Faber has been very, very good, very solid for US. I'm going to put him at 4.
Brock Faber at 4.
We're
Next
talking a
up,
very high level of players.
we have Victor Hedman.
Victor Hedman. So I've got Morrissey at 3. I've got Faber at
Faber
4.
4.
Oh, this is tough because I do not think I think you're going to list one of the guys I'm thinking of, but not the other one now. Hedman had a really good tournament. He only had 1 point, but
He was
what
solid
was
on
he?
his own end.
Yeah, he was a +3.
Was a plus
I'm
3.
I'm gonna put him at 2. I
Put
think
him at 2.
one of the 2 guys I'm thinking of is going 1, and I'm just going out on a limb and assuming the other guy will kind of fit in at 5.
Next defenseman up, we have Essa Lindell.
Essa Lindell, very good tournament. I am gonna have to put him at 5,
At 5.
but that I mean 5 out of some of the best defensemen in the world in the last week.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so you've left the number 1 spot open, and I have already listed 1 defenseman from each country, as you assumed. You were correct there.
I
This
was
was a guy.
assuming that Erik Karlsson was gonna be the Swedish one, and I was gonna put him solidly at 2. A little more hesitant to
Mm,
put Hedman there, but I think it still works.
the only spot left you have open is the number 1 spot, the final defenseman, a guy you were hyping up early in the episode, Devon Taves.
Devontae, okay, I thought it might be Zach Werenski.
I
Obviously,
was
I have to put
debating.
Devon Taves at number 1.
Yeah, I was debating a guy like Zach Greinke, but I was like, man, he's been the best defenseman this tournament.
Yeah.
He's the unanimous number 1. I want to give some love to some of these other guys that I think have all had sneaky good tournaments, but maybe aren't getting the high end praises. The points aren't out of this world for them, but
Yeah.
5 very solid defensemen in their own right.
Yeah. So I went Taves, Hedman, Morrissey, uh,
Faber, Lindell.
Faber, Lindell. I It could have been worse.
Yeah,
I'd probably put out of all of those guys, I think I would go Morrissey, Morrissey first. Oh, it might be Faber. Honestly, those 3 guys in the middle, I can see any order for them. They all
Yeah,
played really
right.
well. Like, I think a lot of people would probably put Devon Taves at 4, but I think he was great out there. Like, if I early on in this got Makar and Taves, I would have put Taves first. I think he's been
Yeah,
better in this tournament. Obviously not
he's
the
he's
better
been very
defenseman
good.
overall, but
Yeah,
Makar played, 1 game less, and, Taves has been really good when he's out there.
yeah. All
So,
right. Well, that will we are at the end of this episode here. So, Braden, as always, I will ask you for your final thoughts.
oh,
Your
man.
final thought before we gear up and get prepared for a fantastic game that is about to take place here on Thursday.
Canada, US 2. It is whatever you are doing later in that Thursday, clear your schedule. Make sure that you can watch this game. It is going to be absolutely insane. And I just cannot wait to see it happen. It's going to be so fun. I pray for no more injuries. I pray for a close game and selfishly a Canada win.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more there. That will wrap up everything for this episode. Once again, hope you guys all enjoyed. And as always, we will see you guys out on the ice on Friday later this week to discuss the conclusion of the Four Nations Faceoff.